Hello students. Today in the second chapter of biology, we are going to study about kingdom classification. What do you mean by classification? Classification is the grouping together of living things on the basis of similarities and their separation on the basis of differences is known as classification. As we all know, that there are different kinds of organisms living on this planet. These living organisms are large in number and highly diversified in their characters. For better approach, living organisms have been classified into different groups by different biologists and scientists. And classification is very important, and there are many advantages of classifying the living organisms into different groups. We will understand this in this chapter. Unit 1 is about classification. The planet Earth has more than 15 lakh different kinds of living organisms. These living beings show indefinite and infinite diversity. Okay, so there are different kinds of organisms and they show infinite diversities. अलग अलग functions हैं इन सारे organisms के, इन सारे living organisms के. If you have, just imagine there is a room full of books and the books are scattered all around. क्या होगा? You will not come to know that which book belongs to which subject without seeing the name. You have to search it. You have to search for a particular book in the whole room. But if the books are arranged properly in the library, you just have to go to the section of the particular subject and there you will find the book that you want. For example, if you want biology book, you will go to the biology section and you will find the book in this shelf arranged properly. So in the same way, we arrange all the living organisms by their characteristics, by knowing the way they breed, what kind of origin they have, from where they have come, and how they function. So, the process of grouping the living organisms on the basis of similarities and differences is known as classification. Man, since times immemorial, has been classifying things present in his surroundings. He distinguished between plants and animals. So, plants are also living organisms and animals are also living organisms, but we have classified them under some categories. We have separated plants and animals into two groups. Classification in a broad sense not only involves grouping of organisms into categories, it also includes their identification and naming. After classifying the organisms, we identify them, उनको पहचानना ज़रूरी है, and naming them, उनको एक नाम देना बहुत important है. How do you come to know that a big furry animal with large teeth, canines, is known as lion? Because we have named it lion. Okay? So there are many different kinds of classification, identification and namings in our whole biological system. What is the advantage of classification? Classification makes the study of living organisms simpler and easier. It helps in easy identification of different organisms. Affinities or relationships between different organisms are easily known. It helps in tracing the possible origin of organisms. Now we will learn what are species. Species is the basic unit of classification. Okay? Organisms within a species can breed among themselves to produce offsprings, but not with organisms of another species. Now, the lion will breed along with the lioness. The organism of a same species will breed among themselves. They will not go to breed in some other species. It is very important to understand. Okay? The lowest category of classification is known as the species. For example, man is one species, cat is another, and so are other like neem, mango, coconut. Okay? So there are groups. Just like in the class, there is a group. There are naughty children, these are studious children, these are quiet children, they are happy children, just like that. Okay? Members of a species resemble one another, they look like each other. एक group of species एक तरीके की दिखती है, and another more than they resemble the members of other species, means they do not resemble with the other ones, but they resemble with their own species so much. Members of a species can breed among themselves and not with the members of another species. We will reproduce and breed among our own species and not with others. Two kingdom classification. Living organisms have been traditionally divided by Linnaeus and other scientists into two kingdoms. पहले classification हुआ दो groups में. First, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. What the scientist Linnaeus did, what he did, he classified the group into two. दो group में बांटा, plant और animal. The members of kingdom Plantae are plants, while animals are included under kingdom Animalia. Okay, so the plants differ from animals in many respects. Plants and animals में difference है. Plants do not move, use sun's energy to prepare their own food and grow indefinitely. Plants move नहीं करते, animals move करते हैं. Plants use sun's energy to make food. Animals don't do that. In addition, plant cells possess cell wall and chloroplast. It is very important. इसको underline कीजिए. When you will be asked, you will write plants do not move. Plants do not move, they use sun's energy, and plant cells possess cell wall and chloroplast. Very important. Animals, in contrast, generally neither have cell wall. Animals के पास cell wall नहीं होती, and ना ही chloroplasts. It must be remembered that the difference between higher plants and animals are sharp. However, difficulty is experienced in case of lower unicellular plants and animals. Now, unicellular plants we have already read in the previous class कि there are multicellular organisms, there are unicellular organisms. So the difference between the unicellular plants and animals is much more complex than what in multicellular organisms. We will read it in the further class. Okay, some organisms like Euglena have features of both plants and animals. Now this Euglena has a feature of both plants and animals. Such organisms were kept by some in plants and under animals by others. Now scientists, after classifying plants and animals in Plantae and Animalia category kingdom, अब इसमें confusion आ रही थी. Some scientists were keeping Euglena in plants, some scientists were keeping it in animals. कुछ लोग इसे plants में रख रहे थे and कुछ लोग इसको animal category में रख रहे थे. Now Euglena is a single celled organism generally kept under Animalia. It has chlorophyll and can prepare its own food. अब ये जब अपना खाना खुद से बना ले रहे हैं, so and they have chlorophyll, then they show a category of plants. They show characteristic of plants. However, it lacks a cellulosic cell wall. Now, as compared to other plants, it does not show cellulosic cell wall and can take food in like animals in the absence of light. So, mixture hai. They possess both the characteristics of plants and animals both. So, the scientists were a bit confused. Now we move on to fungi. Fungi, which are kept under plantae, possess cell wall but lack chlorophyll and derive nutrition from dead organic matter. Again, there is confusion in the characteristics of fungi, which are kept in plantae kingdom, whereas they possess some of the characteristics of kingdom Animalia. Okay, the confusion remains. Some unicellular organisms, like slime molds, are kept under plantae. However, slime molds possess characters of both plants and animals. Like plants, a cell wall is present, are present through only during the reproductive stage, and the plant body can ingest food like the animals. Similarly, bacteria, though mostly non-green, are kept under plantae because they possess cell walls. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms have been kept together in the two kingdoms. First formed organisms which developed on earth were neither plants nor animals. The two kingdom system of classification of organisms into plants and animals was thus found inadequate in the light of disputed position of organisms like euglena, fungi, and bacteria. The two kingdom classification also needed reconsideration. Viruses lack cellular structure and depend on the metabolic machinery of the host. They contain DNA and RNA. Viruses are considered to be on the borderline of living and non living organisms. In view of these objections, now there were so many objections when we categorize them into two groups. Now, in the view of these objections, the two kingdom system of classification was changed into a five kingdom classification, which was proposed by R.H. Whittaker in 1969. It is very important to know who is the father of taxonomy. R.H. Whittaker. Okay, underline kariye. Now, five kingdom classification. Whittaker in 1969 proposed a five kingdom classification based on cell structure, prokaryotic or eukaryotic, mode of nutrition, autotrophic or heterotrophic. The third one is body organization, that is unicellular or multicellular. These five kingdoms. Okay? Now, while taking care in mind that these are some of the details that had to be kept in mind while classifying the five kingdoms. Now, the five kingdoms were Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. अब ये नई क्लासिफिकेशन दी गई थी by R.H. Whittaker in the year 1969. Okay. अब इसके बारे में we will learn in detail, because now the classification is properly done keeping in mind these three basic characteristics that had to be kept in mind, and then it was classified amongst five kingdom groups. So the first one is Monera, the single-celled prokaryotic organism, just like bacteria. Then we have Protista, a single-celled eukaryotes, which include diverse organisms like algae, protozoa, diatoms, and so on. Then the third group was fungi, the multicellular non-green heterotrophs. Okay, and a few were unicellular also, lacking chlorophyll, such as mushrooms and molds. Then we have plantae, that is multicellular green autotrophs like higher algae, mosses, ferns, flowering plants, etc. And the fifth and the last group was Animalia, multicellular heterotrophs, which lacked cellulose and usually exhibit movement like the insects, earthworm, birds, reptiles, and mammals. Here is the tabular format, the five kingdoms of organisms, which is Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Now, the five kingdoms can be represented in terms of cell structure, body organization, and mode of nutrition. Now, the organisms have been classified into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. The eukaryotes are further divided into unicellular, that is kingdom Protista, and multicellular. Now, the multicellular organisms are further classified into the organisms which have cell wall, that are fungi and plantae, and the last one is the multicellular organisms without cell wall, that is kingdom Animalia. So this is very important table. Please mark important this green table. Okay, first one is kingdom Monera. We will read it in details. This kingdom includes bacteria, blue-green algae, also called cyanobacteria, and mycoplasma. Here is the structure of bacteria. One bacteria is known as bacterium, singular. Then here is Anabina, that is blue-green algae. The C is Oscillotoria, and the D1 is nostoc colony. E is mycoplasma. Here are the structures. Now we will read the characteristics of Monera. These organisms are prokaryotic. Prokaryotic means they do not have a defined nucleus and they lack cell organelles. Important point, some of the organisms have cell walls like bacterium and blue-green algae. They have cell wall. Who? Bacterium and blue-green algae. While others lack cell walls like the mycoplasma don't have cell walls. Mode of nutrition is either autotrophic, as in blue-green algae and some bacteria, or heterotrophic in mycoplasma and most bacteria. Moving forward to bacteria. Bacteria, that is singularly known as bacterium, are very small unicellular prokaryotic organisms which lack chlorophyll, the green pigment, and they multiply by fission. They are the simplest and most primitive organisms. These were first discovered by the Dutch scientist Antonio van Leeuwenhoek in 1676. Important. In shape, bacteria are of three types: rod shape called bacilli, spherical or corky, spiral or spirilla. Okay. Moving to the next kingdom, that is kingdom Protista. This kingdom includes unicellular algae, diatoms, and protozoans. The organisms in this kingdom are unicellular eukaryotic organisms. They have defined nucleus and other cell organelles are also present. That is why they are eukaryotic organisms. The mode of nutrition is either autotrophic or heterotrophic. Okay, and some of the protists bear hair-like cilia. इनमें छोटे छोटे hair-like structures होते हैं which are known as cilia, or whip-like flagella for movement. These are being given here, flagellum and cilia. See the structures. These diagrams are very important. You have to practice all of them in your notebooks. In some protists, like amoeba, movement takes place by pseudopodia, false feet. Pseudo means false, podia, feet. It reproduces by binary fission and multiple fission. Respiration and excretion takes place by diffusion. Okay, everything has to be learned properly. Kingdom fungi. Fungi are non-green, lacking chlorophyll. Eukaryotic organisms. Fungi are made up of slender tubes called hyphae. Singular is hypha. The mass of hyphae which forms an individual is called the mycelium. Fungi are heterotrophic in nutrition, and the food is obtained either saprophytically or parasitically. Parasitically, saprophytically means from dead organic matter, and parasitically means from living tissues of other organisms. Most fungi are saprophytes. Cell wall consists of a tough complex sugar called chitin. Now the reserve food material consists of glycogen. Some fungi live in symbiotic relationship with blue-green algae, as in lichens. Some of the examples of fungi are yeast, rhizopus, mushrooms, common molds, etc. Fungi is in the traditional two kingdom system of classification were kept under plants because of the presence of cell wall. Yeasts are single celled organisms, and for thousands of years yeast has been used to ferment the sugar in rice, barley to produce beer, and sugar in grapes to make wine. Yeast added to dough ferments the sugar in the dough to produce carbon dioxide. This makes the dough rise. The mold produces a substance which can destroy bacteria. The substance called penicillin is an antibiotic used to fight diseases caused by bacteria. Please underline this. This is important. Moving forward to the next page. The lichen. Lichen is has a close partnership between an algae and a fungus. The algae cells grow in the fungal mycelium. They make food for photosynthesis, and some of it is passed to the fungus. This kind of association between the two different kinds of individuals where both are benefited is called symbiotic association. This is important. What is symbiotic association? So, the kind of association between two different kinds of individual where both are benefited is called symbiotic association. And kingdom Plantae and Animalia we will study in our next video. Till here you have to practice, you have to read it thoroughly, and you have to practice all the diagrams, and you have to learn all the characteristics of the three kingdoms, that is the first three kingdoms that I have explained. That means you have to learn properly the kingdom Monera, then kingdom Protista, and kingdom Fungi. And then in the next class we will start from kingdom Plantae. Thank you.